When people add Dialogflow, they know that it takes time to train AI to understand the messages and be able to respond. And so when you start out with Dialogflow, you basically start out with a default fallback intent. You can see here, this is like a default reply. So when a user sends a message, it's going to hit a default, and I can type anything, and it'll trigger this default fallback intent. So if I click into that, you can see here, uh, that's my response. Thanks for your message. But since AI training takes time, if the user then sends another message, they're just going to keep hitting the default. And that can get annoying. So, what you can do is, this is a little trick. You can actually set it up so that the first message that the user sends, it's going to hit your default fallback, but then subsequent messages, it'll have no response, or it could have a different response. So, this is really easy. All you need to do is add a what's called as a follow-up intent. And a follow-up intent, if I click on that, these are like template uh, intents that have, there's one for yes or no or later. These are common things that users say, but you can add another fallback. So if I click that, you can see here that the fallback intent is nested under this. It's like a file structure. So this is your top level, and then this is connected to this. So if I click into our original default fallback, you can see that it adds an output context. And that output context is our follow-up intent. And the output context is basically saying, okay, the context of the next message, when another message is sent, it's going to hit this. And this has our input context. You see? So there's a relationship. This is the input context. And this one, our top level, has an output context. So the context will be kept. And so I will show you that if I send another message, I shouldn't get a response. I'll just type in anything. And you can see, oh, I did get a response. Now, the second time, sorry, because I just set it up. So now I'm going to get no response to my next message. Now, what you can do is, you can see here, I should be able to send one more message and I'll get no response. And I'll show you why. That's because context has a lifespan. So Dialogflow will automatically reset the context after 20 minutes. So if a user comes back 20 minutes later and sends a message, then it'll go through this flow again. It'll hit the fallback and then do the thing that we just did. But you can control the context. So if I go into here, you can see that our output context has a lifespan of 2. So if I were to send another message, the lifespan has ended, and it'll go back to our first default with our thanks for your message response. And then if I send another message again, I get no response. And then if I send another one, I get no response. That's because in this follow-up, in the follow-up intent, there was no response added. So you can extend that by just clicking this number, and you can say, okay, 10. So 10 requests or 10 messages, and if we let's save that. And now if we go back, you can see here that this is our parent, and the output context says to go here, and this is in this intent, we have no response. But because we set the output context in this parent intent to 10, then we can keep that context alive. So let's try it again. Let's see what happens. I'll just type something, and there, now it's going to hit our follow-up intent. The context is active, and we have no response in our follow-up. So the user can just keep sending more messages, and they'll get no response. I can send up to 10. Just type anything. I don't know if users are going to keep sending messages like this, but at least your bot can use automation to respond because all of these messages are hitting Dialogflow. There's just no response added to them. So eventually, let's see, eventually it's going to, the lifespan of the context will expire, which it did. So you can see here, all of these messages were sent, we had no response, and then the context resets, and you're back to this intent. And you can keep extending the lifespan of the context. You can just add another fallback. So now I have, this has had our lifespan set to 10. There's now a relationship between this and this. So if I click here, you can see that our default lifespan is 2. We can change that to 10 as well. Now the user can send 20 messages, and because we have no response, then the bot won't respond. It won't just keep sending back a fallback or a default reply with every message, because our original fallback intent is the only one that had a response. So you can see that just by, you can essentially create a flow in Dialogflow, and the context will establish a relationship between intents that gets hit, and the lifespan you have control over. So your bot doesn't keep kicking back a, sorry, I didn't understand, or whatever your default message is. So I hope that helps. And then as you're ready to, when you have your bot more, trained to respond to various messages, you can just delete these. And now you just have, your standard default. So it takes a minute for Dialogflow to train, and then you'll get a confirmation message that it's been trained. AI has to learn, so it's just updating. But let's send our message. Oh yeah, agent training completed. So now I should just get there. Now I'll get that every time. So that's a little trick that you can do, is to basically have your fallback message fire only once, and then you can just add other fallbacks that are connected to it and just have no response in them. Hope that helps.